Okay, so there's lots and lots of data here from the GLSEN survey. GLSEN is the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network. For about 10 years, they've been doing biennial surveys, large-scale surveys of LGBT young people throughout the United States. The most recent one is from 2009. And basically, all of these statistics address environmental issues that LGBT youth negotiate, and the pervasive climate of bullying, harassment, and name-calling. And at our center, when we talk to kids about their experiences in school, one thing I just wanted to note is that there often is a disconnect even among affected teenagers, such that our social workers hear sometimes from clients, oh, it's really not so bad in my school, or people are, actually very accepting. And you reach a little more and you find out that, there actually is some victimization going on, and, even some situations where kids are avoiding school. We find that kind of disconnect is another example of how the anti-LGBT climate is practically normative across schools, when you have upwards of 70% of students reporting that language like faggot and dyke is heard almost every day in their school. It really becomes more of the norm for there to be messages of hostility, so that kids are kind of numbed to it. One thing that this particular survey doesn't compare is bullying and harassment towards LGBT students versus non-LGBT students. And we find that in cases of bullying and harassment for LGBT students, it is frequently more violent than other situations. A lot of research comes out of Massachusetts because their youth risk behavior study includes questions about sexual orientation and gender identity. So a couple stats that I will throw out is that LGBT students are twice as likely to be injured by a weapon at school, and they're 3 times more likely to have been in a fight requiring medical attention, according to the most recent Massachusetts youth risk behavior study. Sexual harassment is also another component of violence directed towards LGBTs, and we find that that's often because there's a perception by bullies or the victimizers that the student wants that type of attention, or sometimes even on a teacher, faculty level, students are blamed for drawing attention to themselves, where it's actually not attention, it's actually being harassed and victimized based on the perception. And one other thing that I thought I would bring up as well is people may be aware of a recent juvenile justice study from 2010 where they found that LGBT youth were more likely to be expelled from school and punished by school officials. And that particular study didn't draw any conclusions about exactly what that meant, but it raises the question, is it possible that youth who are bullied are misperceived as getting in fights on an equal footing with other students? Do schools recognize it when a LGBT student is being victimized, and do they explore the situation appropriately? You can go to the next slide. So these slides speak about policies and practices that prevent anti-LGBT bullying, GSAs, identified adult allies, policies and practices that include anti-LGBT bullying specifically as a priority are the things that really make a difference. What also comes across here is that these policies and practices are not nearly widespread enough. And again, out of Massachusetts, another thing that I will add to this is that in studying schools where there exist LGBT inclusive education versus schools that do not have that sort of education. They find that the ones that include LGBT specifically promote a range of positive outcomes, school attendance, academic achievement, positive mental health, and positive sexual health. And basically what these policies and practices build on are protective factors. And there's two critical protective factors for LGBT youth. And those are self-acceptance, which is a personal capacity, and family support. And what I would say is that, you know, we should try to build on both of those. Family support, it may not always be realistic that we're going to make much of a difference in that area. A family would need to meet you halfway in order to do that. But self-acceptance is most definitely something that we can have an impact on. Okay, last, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I know I need to throw to my next panelist, but some good legislation that we wanted to highlight is the Dignity for All Students Act in New York State. It's not an anti-LGBT bullying bill per se, but it was developed by LGBT advocates due to concerns about the treatment of students in schools. And it is significant and historic because it includes the categories of sexual orientation and gender expression for the first time, and thereby really shifts the thinking of schools in terms of, you know, what they do to protect students from discrimination and from harassment. DASA is focused on the entire school community. It includes requirements for training so that faculty can respond appropriately to discrimination or harassment, and it also has in place a reporting structure so that we can get more accurate data about the prevalence of anti-LGBT discrimination and harassment and other types of harassment and discrimination.
Thank you very much. We know that many school districts are aware of this and already putting task forces in place to work on the implementation of this. So it's good that schools are thinking now about how best to implement this by 2012.